Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A Cafe for ByDesign with Laura Hercolo. Today we're doing workflow in ByDesign. And I just wanted to remind everyone that next week we do not have anything scheduled because it is Canada Day on July 1st and then Independence Day for July 4th. So our US employees are off on Friday and Canadian employees are off for Wednesday. So we will see you back here the following week, which is, there it is, July 8th, Q&A Cafe, Supplier Relationship Management in ByDesign. So we'll see you then for that. So please register for that either on our website, on the resources page, or you'll get an email reminding you how to register after this session about 2 days after. So without further ado, I'll mute myself and I'll hand it over to you, Laura.
Great, thanks, Kayla. Yep, and I'll be doing next week's session. So we're basically going to go through the new workflow for supplier approvals, and then just overall being able to use the product category tab within the supplier master to drive different functionality around notifications when you're creating purchase orders for suppliers that maybe are being phased out, as well as how to utilize that in the RFQ process. So if you are or not using RFQs and are interested in how they can be used, please join next week or 2 weeks. All right, so today, this should be a pretty quick session unless there's some questions, but we're gonna review the out-of-the-box workflow capabilities and how to set up ad hoc workflows within ByDesign. As you are all live on ByDesign, you know that there are BTM tasks for pretty much every single area that come out of the box within ByDesign, and within each of those different areas, you can tweak any of the different parameters or mechanisms or turn them on and off whenever you want to. But there's also the capability without having to use the SDK to influence different workflows or BTM tasks or emails to get sent to your employees without having to use the SDK. So we'll go through how to set up a workflow today. All right, so, and Kayla, you can see my screen okay?
Yes, I can. It's the ByDesign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, let me make it a little bit bigger. All right, so in order to configure the workflow, you need to have the application and user management work center, and within application and user management, we have under the task distribution column, there's the different workflow rules. So within the workflow rules, you can set up a whole host of different tasks that will get automatically created based for certain business objects. Not all business objects have been activated. I highly recommend you to go out to influence and vote. There is an influence there to an influence suggestion from yours truly to expand the capability within this. So we want to try to get as many votes as possible on that. So the scenario I was going to walk through today, one, you can use just from the standard business objects that are in the system, you can create your workflow task, but you can also, for any of the business objects that are in the system, you can also create your custom fields and use that as the impetus for creating a workflow as well. So as an example, today I'm just going to use the opportunity just because it's a pretty easy business object to utilize. So within the system, using the adaptation capabilities, you don't need to do anything special to activate the field for use in the workflow. As soon as you activate it for the screen, it will automatically appear in the drop-down list for the workflow. So in the example I'm going to use today, I'm going to say that anything that an opportunity that's in the opportunity phase and that has a HubSpot lead score of over 50 will send a notification task to the salesperson to start interacting with. So that'll be the example that we're going to use today. Right. So within the application and user management, I've got our workflow rules again. And so we would just create our new workflow rule. And we'll call it HubSpot greater than 50. So we say it's got a good intent score. As you come in here, so your basic data, you can modify this for multiple languages if you have multi-language activated in your system. And then we're going to choose our business objects. So you can see a lot of different business objects. Like I mentioned, not all of them, but there are some pretty interesting and critical ones in here that a lot of people, especially in more the manufacturing environment, would like to see on things like bills of materials, bills of operation, production models. So being able to get notified if like you make a change to a bill of material and it impacts the production model consistency status and things like that. So make sure that you're always keeping all three of those different business objects in sync. If you're working with projects, I highly recommend dipping into this area as well. There's probably about, I would say 50 different metrics that you can choose from in terms of being able to notify people of things like when the planned work is, or when the actual work is greater than the planned, if the risk factor changes, if the status changes on a task. So tons and tons of different ways to kick off different activities around a project because there's so many different things going on at any given time. But like I mentioned, we're just gonna kind of pop into and do the opportunity. And then you can choose your timing. So do I only want to do it when I create the new business object? So as an example, maybe I want to notify somebody when a new PO was created for a particular supplier, or if, as an example, I've got a customer maybe on an almost hold situation and I want to be alerted when we're entering new invoices or things for them, I can say just on create, but then I also can choose on every save, and that'll be really more for those dynamic types of tasks that you want to kick off when something changes. So in this example, I'm creating a new opportunity in a particular status, but then I'm going to change the HubSpot score to a particular status, and then it's going to kick off that task. And then once we get into the conditions, this is how we're going to define what it's looking for in order to initiate that task. So I can choose, again, all of these different fields that I have, and you'll notice that, again, this HubSpot lead score, even though that is a custom field, it's going to be added into the criteria for being able to do the workflow. So let's choose our HubSpot lead score, and we'll compare that with greater than 50. All right, and we'll say okay with that. And then I can also add another condition onto here. So when you're in here, you've got different types of groups that you can have. So groups of conditions, so and or type conditions, or you can do, and then you can do different groups. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in being able to really hone in on just a specific subgrouping of things that you want to alert people to, as opposed to every single thing. Because you can imagine if every time you got alerted to a new quote being created, as an example, you would quickly just start to ignore everything that came through an email, and you wouldn't really look at it. But you want to see potentially all the quotes that are going out for my A customers or people in a certain industry. So this is how we can start to pare down that list of just the critical things that we need. And so let's pull in the sales phase. And you'll also notice in here that you've got value before the object change. And this will go hand in hand as you're creating creating conditions within a group. So maybe I want to look at things that went from one phase to another. Maybe I skipped over a step or something like that. So it'll actually evaluate the current value of a particular field and then what it is, as opposed to it just coming into that particular status, which again gives you a lot more capability to pare down those things. So if I want to look at something, as an example, that was in approval and has been approved, it's a good example. Get notified that yes, this particular transaction has been approved. Right. So I'm going to just keep it simple. We're going to go within the sales phase and then the value, and obviously all the value selectors are going to be in here. So we'll just say that it's at the identify opportunity phase. Okay, and so then again, you'll notice in here as I create different, all of my different operators in here, we're seeing that the HubSpot lead score and the sales phase has to be identify opportunity. And then I can add a whole other group in here and specify like an or situation. So maybe I want to notify someone else, maybe in marketing, when the HubSpot lead score is less than 50, and say, why did it get into the system if it's not a qualified lead? So I can also do different, again, different types of if and or statements within the actual grouping itself. So as I continue on, you've got two different options. So you've got your notification, which is just that BTM task that gets created within the system. And the beauty of doing the notification within the system is that, as you all know, you can do the subscribe to task via email. So they'll get both that pop up in the system, or the capability to do both, to see both. They'll be able to see it in the system, have it pop up, but then they'll also get an email. When it's just an email, that's all they're going to get is just an email. So we will do just a notification, and I can circle back and show you how the email looks. There are some bits of tricky things just to know. I mean, if you have any experience with the output within the system, or putting things in like campaign emails and things like that, and email headers for or email templates for your forms and things like that, they all have to be in an HTML format. So one of the other kind of things that's a gotcha, if I do change this to an email and I bring in my template, so I can actually activate this. I just created sort of a new task type email in here that says you've got a new task in the system, and I can open that up. There is, if you are trying to do this for the first time and you've never done any sort of HTML templates in your system, you'll want to go to business configuration, and there's a fine-tuning activity called MIME options. And if you try to upload an HTML template, you'll get the error, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to fix, what you need to activate in the system to enable you to upload the HTML. But it's a very quick fix. I think by default, all of the systems are turned off for adding the HTML, and you just have to activate a little tick box in there. Oops. So let's just go in, and we will just do a notification. So I can choose, in some instances, you can choose to send a notification X amount of days after something happened or before something happened, or like before impinging on even different fields, like keying off of different fields within that particular transaction. So maybe I have an opportunity that someone else created that's just an open, and I need to set it to in process if I accept it, or things like that. I can choose different options as to what it's keying that creation date off of. And then you can specify an expiration date. If I want to do it 0 days or like never expire, I can do that, or how many days, weeks, months I want to use before that just kind of falls off someone's work list. Like maybe you just want to give them a quick notification. They don't need to necessarily react to it, but physically wipe it off their work list. And then I have my the cancellation of the task is never if the conditions aren't met. And then whatever our subject is, so what you want them to see as they're coming in. And so to impact that, we'll use these different placeholders. Out of the box, you've got just 4 for the notification, but you'll notice it changes a little bit if I switch to email. So within the email itself, you want to set this up before you actually create your HTML template, because you can have these different smart tags that you can define. So just by putting in like a hashtag one, hashtag. I can pick any of these fields that are in the system or that, that are in here and use those as again, a placeholder or a smart tag in the system. So it becomes a little bit more personalized and it gives the user a little bit more information as to where they need to go, as opposed to, hey, you just have a task that you need to do. Right, go back to the notification. So in this example, I will just use, I'm just going to use the account as an example. So we have that, and the placeholder changes as it's in the notification. So the placeholder one, and that really is only used in the subject line. So we'll say like opportunity for, and then again, if I use that ampersand one for that tag, it's going to automatically pull out the account ID from the opportunity and fill that into the subject line. We'll say that it's qualified. And so that's as simple as that. And then I can choose the recipient determination based on, again, different parts of the business object itself, of the transaction. So I can either say to the employee responsible that sits in this example in the opportunity, or his or her line manager. Again, they're great. Something happened, this opportunity stalled, this opportunity is not faring well, it's below a certain HubSpot score. We want to alert the line manager that we're working on things that we shouldn't be working on. So we can always do that. And then that just makes it really super dynamic in nature. So those can be kicked off for anybody that's entering those things. Or I can also specify a static employee to receive the data, one or more. So I'm just going to put in a couple people in here because I know that I will be logged in as them, just to get that notification. And that is pretty much it for the creation of the workflow. And so again, you'll see really just overall what the summary is. So here's what our notification is going to be, the subject and subscribes after, and then all I need to do is activate that bad boy. All right. So let's see this guy in action. Right. Just double check that it's on our work list and ready to go, and then it's active, so it's perfect. So in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new opportunity, and I'm going to put it in the identify opportunity stage, but I'm not going to put a HubSpot score in, and then I'll go back in again and I'll add that score as to 51 or above. And hopefully, if I did everything right, I'll keep my fingers crossed that that task will automatically pop up at the top of the list, at the top of my screen, and also send a work notification to my inbox. All right, everybody hold your breath. Let's see if this works. All right, so we're gonna create for Alpha Analytical. So we've got our sales phase, identify opportunity. Got a couple things that we just need to fill in because it's mandatory. Oops. All right, and so we're gonna save that. And obviously nothing's going to pop up because I didn't do that, because I didn't enter that HubSpot score and it's under 50. Let's enter it at 45 and hopefully nothing will appear there. So that's good. Once I save it, because I have this workflow kicking off for every time that I do a save, it's constantly monitoring anything that's in that sales phase, identify opportunity, and it's watching for when something pops below that list. Yay, it worked. Okay, I get a little excited when I do something just off the cuff without trying it. So here's our opportunity task. Opportunity for here is qualified. And then immediately we go to our launch pad and we can see, should be able to see exactly the same thing in our work list. So now I also see that pop up and appear in my work list. And I pretty much should be able to, this should show up in here as your tasks. I think from the last time that I did this, actually it might not show up. I thought they did, but it comes in as a little bit of an odd type thing, and it might just take a little bit for it to appear, but those should be able to be subscribed to as well. Otherwise, you can just copy that task and then send an email out as well as a notification. And let me see if I did, so I did sort of the same thing earlier. So I did another estimate just to give you kind of a quick sense for just creating that template. I did do another workflow task about like an opportunity that hits a certain stage, that hits the quoting stage, that once I hit that, then it'll send a note to someone maybe in the project team or the sales management team to estimate, and then this will be your associated HTML task that goes to it. And you can even create links in here back into ByDesign as well. So you've got a lot of different options in there. Again, it's pretty intuitive to be able to create those. Like I said, it's a little bit of a teaser in my opinion, because it's got quite a few business objects, but not as many as I would hope. So things like where you'd want to see things like leads or maybe product changes, account changes, supplier changes, more the master data side. Hopefully they'll be bringing those in to the future. So like I said, I do recommend going out to the Influence, looking for extend workflow of business objects in Influence and give it a little vote. All right. So like I said, this is a kind of just a quick general overview of workflow. I knew it was going to be a quick session today. So with that, I'll open it up if there's any questions as to what we went through or just the workflow capability in general. Don't see any questions in the chat. All right, Kayla, that's about all I had for today for this session. Ooh, I think Brian has a question. Oh, that was a thank you. Okay, you're welcome, Brian. All right, and I am laura.herculo@vistaviewsolutions.com. If you guys have any questions, if you start to tinker around with this in your test environments and run into a snag, or want to talk about certain things in more depth, you can do that. Again, if you're fooling around with this is one thing that I've always struggled with, is how to do the HTML template. I'm not super technical of a person, but I did just download a tool today, and it is called, let me see, where is that guy? I think it's called Spyro. Yeah. Oh, Stripo. So if you've never used it before, it was super easy to do. It's a lot of drag and drop. It generates the HTML. It generates this template in just about any type of format that you want, that you can drop directly in. So it is super intuitive. It's free. You get like I think it says 4 templates every month that you can create and download and export. So if it's your first time working with it, I would highly recommend just downloading that, because it's again, just log in with your Google account, and then you're off to the races. All right. Okie dokie. Well, that's about it. I'll wish everybody a super Wednesday, and we won't see you next week, but hopefully you'll join us the following week for the supplier relationship management Q&A session. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.